Hello, everyone. Welcome to Popcast on the Rocks at 100, episode 146. It's Tuesday. We're a podcast that talks about pop culture things that interest us. Sometimes there's whiskey, and my name is John. I'm joined as always by Andrea. How's it going?
Good, good. It's funny when you first kind of said, it's Tuesday, I
Hmm.
immediately was like, "Oh, Tuesdays, Taco Tuesdays." I read an interesting thing about Taco Tuesdays today. Uh-oh.
Really?
That thing was a lawsuit by Taco Bell trying to get the phrase Taco Tuesday untrademarked.
Oh,
And so that it
oh,
should be
wow.
free for all to use. So I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, man, now that I've said all of that on this podcast, we're probably just, getting shut down as we speak from
Yeah,
YouTube." They're just, like,
right.
descending. "She said it, she said the thing."
She said,
It's
she said TT. Yeah.
Yep,
Hmm.
yep. "It's not free yet."
That seems weird to bother with a lawsuit for that. Why wouldn't you
Well
just why wouldn't Taco Bell just make it like, "Okay, we're gonna do Taquito Tuesdays?"
well, because 'cause they're, like I think they're, like, playing on it as a sense of, like, advertising in the sense of,
Mhm.
like, you know it should be free for all to say and, like, look at us, like, spearheading this, and it's kind of like a funny lawsuit that gets people talking.
Mm,
Because I read some
okay.
of, like, the legal text of the lawsuit right now, and it's actually pretty hilarious. It's like somebody wrote, like, a tweet thread and put it into a
Mm.
lawsuit. It's really clever and well done. It's very funny.
I think if I was marketing, I would do an like, ad campaign where it's Taco Tuesday, but they use asterisks to blank out a couple letters in taco,
Oh,
and then
sure,
when they
sure,
say it,
yeah.
they bleep it. So, "Beep,
Sure.
Tuesday," and then it's like just do the whole thing, like, it's we can't say it, it's the dirty word or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, I haven't watched, like, enough regular TV to know if, like, somebody's on that.
Mhm.
It feels like they should, or if they haven't already, like, that would be really clever. So, I mean,
Mhm.
maybe it's already out there.
Mhm.
Maybe there's, like, a hilarious Taco Bell commercial that
Sure.
that talks about that. But, yeah, I was reading that on the old Twitter/X/ whatever we call it now.
That's right.
Um, and, yeah, that was just really funny. So,
Cool.
kudos, hats off to Taco Bell. And also hats
Alright.
hats off to me for shutting us down in the first 5
Yeah.
minutes of our show.
Yeah. Today's episode, we're going to focus on another retro rewind kind of thing.
Mhm,
Talk about the James Bond movie Octopussy.
mhm.
It's the 40th anniversary of that film, so we'll be getting into that in spoilerific details. You've had 40 years to watch it. Um, And then we'll get caught up on our weeks. I've got a
Mhm,
comic book review that's also nothing new, older comic book. And,
mhm.
we were talking tacos. Tacos need beverages to go along with them, right?
They absolutely do. They absolutely do, and, lucky for us, within the first couple of, days of celebration that we've had over the past couple of weeks, there's something that would pair well with a taco. You could kind of, like, futz this first one into pairing with a taco, but on July 19th, it was daiquiri day. Do not
Mhm.
remember the last time I had one of those. I mean, they're like, a close cousin of the margarita.
Yep.
So,
Hmm.
the blended margarita, anyway.
Yep.
So, you could kinda, like, make an argument that you could
I
pair
like a
daiquiri.
daiquiri when it's real hot or something. Beachy drink.
Yeah. Yep. Yep, it's certainly a summertime drink. But our next holiday is obviously a classic made for the taco. Uh, July 24th, it was tequila day. So, cheers to that. I love me a
Yeah.
good tequila. I am not sadly celebrating that one.
I
You
just
are,
keep my
though.
bottle. No, I don't have it poured actually. I have something else, but I just
Okay.
keep my bottle of tequila right here.
Okay.
Never far
Well,
from my side.
I decided to I mean, it is a comfort thing for sure. It's like a blankie, it's like a teddy bear. Um, um, I decided to celebrate other days that I felt paired more with our main topic for tonight, but I do love me a good tequila day.
Okay.
Um, Following that is something a little bit different, July 25th. not just a beverage, but a pairing. It was wine and cheese day, a classic. One of
Yeah.
my favorites, like, when I'm sitting down and having a glass of wine, I love, like, a good, like, charcuterie board, wine and cheese and crackers, totally my jam.
Yeah. I was reading this and I was like looking over what should I do,
Mhm.
and just made me hungry. I'm like, what cheese do we have? I can bring on, but I'm not
Ooh,
having wine, so I haven't.
okay.
Not doing the not doing the
So
cheese,
you're not doing
unfortunately.
that. I think I did
No.
that last year, and I definitely ate cheese and crackers on the pod, but it was much more awkward than I'd even anticipated. I knew going into it, I was
Mhm.
like, I know I'm gonna be a bit loud, but I think I can manage." I could not. I was like, "Don't listen
It's
to
just, yeah,
me."
you gotta turn off the mic and the camera and yeah.
Yeah, too much work, but a
Uh-huh.
favorite day. Something I am celebrating, and I'll tell us why later, uh, July 27th, Scotch Day.
Nice. All right.
I
Scotchy
am
scotch
celebrating
scotch.
that. It gets in my belly. I just straight up, nothing
What,
fancy.
what kind of scotch you got?
I had to look it up and remember, because I bought it a while ago and we had this like fancy barrel, um,
Oh.
that we put it in, that Chris really loves. Um,
Oh, you mean like a decanter thing for
no, it's like a literal like mini barrel
okay. It
that
comes that
you
way.
no, it like it's
Okay.
for you to put like a beverage inside. And
Okay.
so like that's like our special barrel. It's like when we get
Mm.
our special whatever.
Is it supposed
Um
to take up, like, take away something from the wood, and like, is it wooden that it would like okay,
yep.
so it maybe pull some flavor from the keg.
Yes,
That's cool.
exactly. So we always get like a fun new thing. Um but then I was like, what actually is it? Like what did I actually buy?
Right,
Because I
yeah.
forget like all the time. But it was uh Buffalo Trace.
Oh, okay, perfect, yeah. Everybody loves
Mhm.
that. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, I bought some of that as a gift for my dad, and I don't think I ever tried any, but I've heard it's great, so
It's good. Yeah, I like it a lot.
nice.
So it's a good sipping. It's a good sipper.
For a while, places were limiting you to, like, only being able to buy 1 bottle.
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Um, and in this particular case, I know that the store we usually visit had been out of this particular one for a while. So
Mm,
they were like making a big deal last time I went in there. They were like, back. So
nice. Cool. Alright.
yeah. Other than that, we are officially in the start of a new month. How is it August? Somebody tell me for real, because I'm not sure what happened to this year already. But August is coffee month, something I and probably you as new parents appreciate very, very
Yep.
deeply at
Mhm,
this point in time. And
mhm.
then today in particular, August 1st, is also another wine holiday. It is Albarino Day, which is a white
Yeah,
wine.
nice.
So,
Cool. I'm not celebrating any of the things, unfortunately, because I made a drink based
sure.
on I thought we're talking Bond, so I
Ooh,
would make a martini,
nice.
um, stirred, not shaken. Uh, I know,
Sacrilege. My
I
God, I
know.
can't even look at you right now.
But the thing is, the sacrilegious thing is really the reverse of that. You're
I know.
supposed to stir it. So
Outside of Bond world, yes. In
yes.
normal, just, we're drinking a martini way, James Bond's way is sacrilege, but
How
the thing
many
now.
times, maybe we've talked about this, but when you were bartending, how many times did someone ask specifically to have their martini shaken, not stirred? How many times?
Enough for me to need to start actually suppressing an eye roll.
I
It
mean,
was fun.
look, I get it. If it's a movie night, like the new
Right,
movies out or
right,
something, I get it. But any other circumstance, the martini is going to be made the way that martini is supposed to be made, you
right.
know. And I sure request it, but you're not doing anything other than clouding your drink.
Exactly, and making me have to shake it,
Yeah,
which, I'm the type of
maybe that
person
was
who
the deal.
always I always worried that, like, one of the parts of the shaker, because like, if you do the real shaker, not like your at-home cocktail shaker, it's a
Yeah,
glass and the shaker, so I
right.
always worried something was gonna pop off or it was gonna, like, leak somewhere. I'm
Yep.
just a perpetually, glass half empty kind of scenario, like, I just worry about that sort of stuff, so I was always like, "Please don't."
I've seen
I
plenty of
just
like
wanna stir it.
they want to see it work for that tip.
They do, they do.
Yeah,
There were
put your
definitely
elbows into it.
people who would order that, around a movie release, and yeah, that's always fun, and, the first couple times somebody ever ordered that, it was like, "Ah, James Bond."
Yeah.
Um, but, there were definitely people, I think, who ordered stuff like that who were more in the, "Oh, this is like a scene from Cocktail," "We're jazzy, she's shaking the drink behind the bar,
Mm.
let me watch her move around and do her thing." And it's like, "No, that's not really what this is,
Not your
okay?
wasn't your establishment.
No, we're a sushi restaurant, we're not some downtown club where, beats are playing behind me and I'm, in like a vest and sunglasses, just."
But you could have done that, I bet.
I
I mean, if
could've.
you started getting fancier, you're like, "I'm gonna pour this line of drinks
Right.
from 2 feet up," and, like,
I
it's
I did
just
do some of that sometimes just because it was really fun.
yeah.
Or if you had like a decent party or a bachelorette party or something sitting at the bar, then it was kind of fun to
Mhm.
show off a little bit. Um, but still, that clientele was like a little bit different, especially like a
Sure.
bachelorette party, because you never
Right.
knew how smashed they were going to be and how impressed they were going to be by the littlest things.
Yeah.
So,
"Oh my god.
yeah.
This sushi is not absorbing any of the alcohol."
Yeah, no. I would not recommend a sushi restaurant for a bachelorette party, because I mean, unless you're the non-drinking kinda bachelorette
Yeah.
party, because that
Yep.
sushi is going to soak up nothing.
Um, I should say what's in this, I suppose. So it's,
Oh,
I
yes.
have, 2
Is it a
ounces
regular or
of
a Vesper?
it's not a Vesper,
Oh, no, you've got
but,
olives in there, it can't be.
it's my own concoction. It's 2 ounces of a Polish vodka, 1 ounce of, gin, of a Hendrick's, like, special edition gin, and
Mhm.
then, 1 ounce of limoncello, a half ounce of vermouth, and then 2 cherries,
Oh,
cold cherries.
cherries, that's what those are. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, there I got for, Father's Day, for my parents, some fancier cocktail cherries. So,
Fun. Good use of
yeah,
those.
yeah.
Well, that's
I
funny
need to
that
get some metal
you're
skewers, but
Oh, yeah. Just to top off the look there. It's
mhm.
funny that you're doing a martini, because I was watching through Octopussy and really thinking there isn't much of that in this
Mm.
movie. There's no order of a martini. Octopussy does just make one randomly at one point for James and then pours it in a wine glass instead of like, a coupe glass or a
I
martini
know what you're
glass.
talking about. I know the scene that you're talking about. I
So
thought of things then too during that.
So I was just like, "Okay, well, that's interesting." So the only other thing that we see more drink in Octopussy really is champagne, and that's another
Yeah.
James Bond aesthetic. So I am also having a glass of champagne.
Yeah, nice, Andrea.
Because Roger
Nice.
Moore seems like a champagne kind of guy.
Yeah, he
He
does.
does. So
Mhm. Nice. See, but that's not in a champagne flute, Andrea. Here
I
you
know,
are
Dor-
critiquing
Dorit would be so pissed at me.
Yep, she would be. She would be.
Yeah, I thought
Uh,
about it, and then I was like, "No, I'm just gonna do it in a white wine glass."
okay. All right. Well, we'll talk more about Bond coming up here in a bit. What is Dorit up to these days? Do we know? Is
Um,
that season
filming
happening right now?
filming a new season. I know they are filming right now. Um,
Okay.
I do have to say for my week, we haven't talked about Housewives in a long, long time, but I got really curious, um, to watch the rebooted New York,
It's
and it is
rebooted.
fun. It's totally
Okay.
rebooted. They fired everybody. Everybody
Wow.
or
Okay.
everybody's on pause, whatever you wanna call
Sure.
it.
Yeah. They get
And they
things
have a
from back.
whole new cast, and it's just so much better that way. Everybody
Okay.
from New York was getting real tired,
Yeah.
and this reboot is a lot of fun to finally see, like, entirely new faces, people that are a mix of ages, young and old, mix of different backgrounds, mix of different like jobs that they have had or do have now. They're just they're a lot more fun as a collective group. And it's also fun for the viewer because we're getting to know them and they're getting to know each other. So it's
Sure.
really like a nice fresh new beginning. So whoever pushed
I-
for that to happen, kudos because it actually is really interesting.
Do we know, is Bravo on a streaming service? Is there content available on a
Yes. Yes,
platform?
they're on Peacock.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Otherwise, they're just available with cable. They have their, like, Bravo on cable that you
Yeah.
can watch
Of the
for
like
free.
half dozen services I have, I don't have Peacock. Yeah. It's like just yeah.
Peacock is currently the cheapest. I believe they're only 2 or 3.99.
Really.
'Cause
Hmm.
I think they're trying because they were free for a while, so they were trying to get people hooked, and they're starting out
Yeah.
low and slow, and I think they'll build.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, uh, for a while that was our junk TV constantly was
Yeah.
Housewives stuff, and just like we haven't watched a minute of it in what feels
Mhm.
like a very long time now. So yeah,
I
they
have
did
I
definitely need a reinvention.
Yeah, I've pulled way back because a lot of them just felt really tired and sad, and I just got curious enough, to see a whole entire new cast.
Yeah.
Um, it was fun. It's fun.
Cool. Nice.
The other
What else you got
TV
going this week?
Yeah, I was gonna say the other TV and movie things that I have been watching are nothing like Real Housewives. I'm watching Jujutsu Kaisen. I watched another um, Witcher season 3 episode. This one I was a little disappointed by. This one veered into some Game of Thrones ending season territory, especially in terms of characters that were far apart but somehow traveled to be near each other, and it felt disingenuous. It felt
Mm,
like the point in time where Danny flies her dragons and they're just
yeah,
like in a place in a day.
teleporting.
This had some elements of that, and I did not love it. It felt
Mm,
The episode felt disjointed, and this was kind of one of the more glaring, wrongs I could point to in the episode. So yes, I'm a little worried here. But
What
also Oh,
go
no,
ahead.
go ahead.
Well, how has the production value been this season?
Production value is high. It's
Okay.
great.
Better than
I
last
mean,
season, you think?
I would say on par.
Okay.
On par for sure. It definitely hasn't dropped.
Okay.
Um, I love I love the world building and the set production and the set decoration. It's rich, it's warm, it's detailed. It really feels like they've built these places. I love production value. Um, yeah, I'm a little worried at the writing slash storytelling in this last episode.
Sure.
But
Yeah, I've been hearing there's been some big drop-offs in viewership, like, it sounds like people
yeah.
tuned in to, like, give it a shot, and then
Mhm.
it's been kind of going down from there, both, like, review-wise and viewership-wise,
Yeah.
um,
Which, I
but
mean, might lend itself to, kind of one of the trending topics recently is season 4 has been put on hold. Might be okay.
yeah.
Might be okay with that.
Yeah,
I mean, nobody
so
nobody was ever really, like, super convinced or excited about Liam Hemsworth's Geralt
right,
anyway,
mhm,
so maybe we just slowly let this slide into oblivion, which
yeah.
is sad because I really love the show, but might just
We
be
need
what's
more
best.
inf we need more information on this, like, right now, it's like, because I was trying to find the initial report I saw because I didn't link it because I wasn't planning to do a whole thing on or something, um, that mentioned it being indefinitely on hold. And other things I look up now, they say, like production won't start again until next year. Some say that they don't know why it's on hold. Think it has a part to do with actors and writers strike, but
Right?
that seems like a lot of well, that seems like what the case is, but not a statement that that is the case. So I just don't know. Don't know what's going on with it. Just seems right now for Witcher stuff pretty uncertain time in general uh for Witcher.
Yeah. Which, like I said, is sad, but if this is a trend in storytelling for season 3, then I will be content to let this go.
Sure. Um okay, well, yeah,
Yep,
keep us updated what the rest of the season's like for you.
of course. In other things that I've watched, Chris and I are back on the Supernatural slog. We
Mm,
we had remembered that we we didn't mean to. We took a pause in season 12, and just forgot that we hadn't come back to it.
yeah.
So we started that back up. It was a great episode actually to come back at because one of the brothers like gets hit with a spell and forgets who he is. So he has to be
Oh,
reintroduced to everything. So it's kind of
interesting.
perfect because we were
Yeah.
we were sitting there talking and just where are we? Like what is happening? What
Mhm.
were the what were the major storylines? What were the villains? What were the. So this was a nice episode to just kind of ease you back in along with, one of the main characters. So
Cool.
that
Yeah.
was fun. So I think we're gonna stick it out and just really push to get to the end because that is a great show. It just
Okay.
woof is a lot of seasons. As far as movies go, of course, I watched Octopussy for tonight, and then in the next installment of what Chris is now, I think, very cleverly calling our animated ABCs because it's not just Disney. We watched the animated Robin Hood, which is an absolute childhood favorite of mine. Shocking for someone who's an admitted Anglophile, of course. Um, but Evie loved it too, so that made me really happy. We watched Sleeping Beauty. She wasn't so much into that. I don't think there was enough things to do. She got
Yeah.
excited towards the end, but the majority of the movie could take it or leave it. Then we watched Tarzan. Loved that. Loved
Okay.
that. I
Nice.
mean, talking, singing animals,
Right.
not
Yep.
not super
Good bet.
surprising. Up we watched and she didn't love it, and I was okay with that because that is just one of the saddest movies. Woof. I forgot. I mean,
Mhm.
I knew, but then I forgot and I watched it. Damn.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and then today we started our letter V. It's a movie called Valiant, which I'd heard of but never watched before, and it's about um, carrier pigeons during World War II, and a carrier pigeon who's smaller than the rest but wants to do his part. Um,
Okay.
and I believe is voiced by Ewan McGregor. So
Okay.
that was a cute little
So
film I hadn't seen before.
I have a problem with your animated ABC's title. because it sounds very all encompassing. It's almost like you're learning the alphabet of animation. And if that's the case,
Oh,
this needs
sure.
to be beyond like stuff that's child friendly. And when you started, it was starting very like we're going through Disney movies. And
Yes.
then you peeled off. So you kind of have to start again. Like,
Well,
that'd
yeah,
be an
we're
interesting.
gonna go another cycle for
Okay.
sure. Like, we're
It'd
not
be an
just stopping
interesting
in C.
thing for us on this show to formulate the animated ABCs and to come up with like A to Z what if you want to appreciate animation, what you should
Mhm.
watch. And we
That would
could
be really fun.
debate like a letter, you know. Mm,
Yes. I think that would be really fun. We should do that episode, like, in December, like a
yeah,
closing year
yeah.
kinda thing. I
And
would
then
be
you've gotten a
all for
lot
that.
under your belt by then too. You've
Exactly.
got it's a lot more. And
Exactly.
hmm,
Well, and there are a lot more choices than I realized because some people have started to guess what we're gonna watch next,
hmm,
for each letter, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's a classic, of course you would guess that." And then, we go to the letter and Edie picks out of her choices, and there's, like, 6 choices. Like,
sure.
R had at least 6 choices, and I was just like, "Whoop, that one was
Yeah.
wrong."
I mean, because V should probably be V for or should be Vampire Hunter D. So not
Ooh.
child
Not
friendly, but
not child no, definitely not child friendly.
so yeah, it'd be fun to like come up with.
Mhm.
I
That would be
don't
really
feel
fun.
qualified, frankly, to put that list together. You know,
Who's qualified to do
um,
anything? Fake it till you make it.
it's absolutely true. You're 100% correct. I just like I know that there are people that are
It would be
much
tough, though.
more. Yeah, yeah.
It would be
It'd be fun
intimidating,
though.
but
It'd be fun.
yeah, let's do it.
All right. Cool. Um, well,
Well, how
speaking of
about
you
you?
being, yeah, and like an Anglophile, I have to say I'm reading Moonraker, the
Mhm.
the Ian Fleming novel, and one thing I love about doing it is I automatically gets to read every voice in my head in an English accent. Um, so that's been a lot of fun.
For sure.
Um, the other thing that's really interesting, and we talked about reading a Bond novel here coming up.
Mhm.
Um, is who do I envision as Bond when I'm reading this book?
Ooh, who
Because
do
I'm not
you?
automatically gonna. That's my mind doesn't know. It's a distraction while I'm reading for sure.
Okay.
Because there are different moments that really feel like they belong to one actor's portrayal or another.
Okay.
Every time Fleming describes Bond, it feels like he's describing Pierce Brosnan or Timothy Dalton.
Mhm.
Like either one of them could work. Probably more Pierce Brosnan, honestly, with the hair. When I'm
He
when
visually
I'm
is, like, perfect Bond, visually.
think so. Yeah. Yep.
For me, like,
Yeah.
that's visually who I can just like, epitomizes Bond for
Yep.
me.
But when like Bond is walking through the headquarters, the Secret Service, and he's talking to Moneypenny and stuff, it's hard to not see Sean Connery kind of swaggering about, like
Mhm.
making some comments and stuff.
Mhm.
But then when Bond is at the card table and he's like doing drugs and like trying to outwin I'll bet this guy or whatever. I'm like, this is Daniel Craig, you know, that kind
Mhm.
of ruthless, reckless sort of character.
Energy, yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and then when I'm like, they're conversing, he's like conversing long things with M. It's hard to not hear the like proper Queen's English of Roger Moore. So
Mhm.
it's kind of I'm almost halfway through Moonraker, and I don't know who. It's just an amalgamation of morphing James Bonds in my brain. So I'm interested as I continue reading, like if it will settle, you know.
I noticed you left somebody off the list.
Yes, I have not. I have not been picturing. Um,
Lazenby?
uh, yeah, George Lazenby, and it's mostly because I mean,
George
with
George.
Yeah, I know. I know, he does a good job. He does a good job. Um, it's haven't watched that movie enough that I would have his voice in my head. Like, the voice
Mhm.
is important too. Like, I literally hear the voice of whoever when they're speaking and stuff. And,
Yes.
I'm not familiar enough with his voice, so that would be hard.
Mhm. Yeah, I get that.
So, I'll show off this book when I'm done with it. It was a Father's Day gift from Ashley. There's a site, you might be interested in it. It's, if I can remember the name of it now, I can look it up quickly because I have it in my list here. But it's this book site that does specialty prints of different novels. So not just the James Bond novels, but other ones as well. Like they have the Dune books and stuff like that. Um, so that'd be okay. So the Folio Society.
Oh, okay.
So the Folio
Yep, I know
Society, they
them.
make fancy hardcover versions of classic literature and stuff, and so
Yep,
that's the
I've heard of
version I'm
them
reading, and
before.
it's really nice. So, um, doing that. Um, Watched Octopussy for the 4th anniversary. Been playing some more Tears of the Kingdom, and then for sure wanted to mention and review Batman Year One. We talked about Batman the
Mhm.
other week, with the Dark Knight anniversary, and I've been finally going back. When I grew up with as a kid with comic books, for the start of it, it was just like, what issue can I find here? What issue can I find there? So it was sort of this all over the place. I wasn't reading a singular story of anything. It wasn't a collection. It was a floppy copy here and there when I could get one. Then a little later, it was I would be able to be subscribed, but it was kind of only just reading then to what was coming out at the time. So
Mhm.
I never really went, and most things I never went back and read the classics. So there's a lot of X-Men, but Batman classic stories that I have not read. The
Sure.
exceptions being I was subscribed when Batman Hush was happening. So I read that as it released. I've read Long Halloween and Dark Victory by Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb. And Long Halloween has been typically my favorite Batman story. And then I have a different one, like 12 Nights of the Beast, that isn't considered a classic, I guess, but I loved it. So I've been reading some more Batman now, and I read Batman Year One because I've been also like looking at just Frank Miller's work. And Batman Year One is by Frank Miller,
Mhm.
and I read a digital edition that's been recolored. So Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli, and I have something to read from David Mazzucchelli in a minute here. Um, he did the pencils for it. Um,
Okay.
the art is really cool in this. It's very like it just makes me miss um some stuff that's a little more like competently styled. There's really like the way they play with shadow and like color. They're not afraid to, go for something that feels surreal. The story is maturely written. It's one of those things that often maybe you're reading a Batman comic and you could get bored by hearing about Gordon and his wife, but it's just as interesting as anything else happening. And you can see, and I understand now after reading some more Frank Miller stuff, honestly, why these things keep getting referenced back to by the movies and such. Every time they make a movie now and stuff, they're always like the things that they seem to go back to are only a handful of stories from Batman. Like you could probably count them on one hand what stories they're really pulling things from mostly. And a
Mhm.
lot of that is Frank Miller's work. And so I can see in this where they got the look and idea of Catwoman in the Batman, the newest one. Um, I can see there's a scene that they take pretty close, very similar in Batman Begins from this as well. When Batman is like dealing with like breaking into, I think in this case, he's breaking into scarecrows or whatever, and he has this kind of confrontation out on the deck, the patio or whatever, out the window and falls out and stuff. So there's a scene that feels similar to that in this. And I don't know, I just see the inspiration. It's so well written. It makes me feel more validated in my criticisms of other comic books and anime and works when I'm complaining about exposition and lazy writing and things like that. Like it's, comic books can be just as great of a medium for, powerful storytelling as anything else. And a lot of times that's squandered by people that aren't doing the medium justice. And so this Batman Year One is just really great. So highly recommend it. Love the recolor that they did. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah.
I was looking this up just because I was curious about it, and I did not know that it's also a film from 2011.
Oh, animated?
Batman
They
Year
animated or
One.
something?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing. Like, so literally today, I was gonna start watching Batman Gotham by Gaslight. And as soon as I turned on, I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this thing again. Like this style, there's like this American DC animated movie style of
Mhm.
art and everything. It's kind of a simplified thing. It just, and when it said it was based on a story by someone and Mike Mignola, who's the Hellboy guy. And then I immediately saw this. I'm like, I just want to read this. I'll just read the
Sure.
graphic novel because I guarantee you it's going to look and feel better than this film. They've taken a
Okay.
lot of stories and just made it into an animated thing. They just slap it together, and that's fine. But it's just they feel a little soulless sometimes, a little stiff. Like they don't have the production value that like Castlevania does most of the time.
Mhm.
So it's just I'll just read it. So
Okay.
yeah. Um, So as Alan, if for those who are watching, as he's showing some like a few example slides, I might jump up and like comment on that or something like that. But
Yeah.
I want to read this thing from the artist for this. I thought it was really interesting, and it's kind of a potentially bigger conversation that I thought would be interesting. So at the end of this edition of Batman Year One, there's sort of this comic panel laid out, this sort of the artist talking about what they did and some of that. And so this is the final 2 pages of what he said. So bear with me, then we can see what we thought. So talking about superheroes in general. Because of their simplicity, superheroes are easy prey for revisionists. In 1954, Dr. Frederick Wortham saw in Batman and Robin's relationship a coded metaphor for homosexuality. First, let's remember that superhero comics were invented for children, boys, really. Wortham made the fundamental mistake of examining these comics with an adult sensibility and without humor. Here's how I see it. When Bruce Wayne was a kid, his pampered, idyllic life was shattered to pieces. Since then, he's been trying to put it back together. Makes perfect sense that his best friend would be 12 years old because Batman is still a little boy stuck in a man's body. If there is a no girls allowed sign on the Batcave/clubhouse, it's because girls are icky. That's why Catwoman is dangerous. She represents a maturity the boys aren't ready for. The TV show got a lot of mileage from this dynamic. Superheroes live best in their own world, pre adolescent world. While an interesting experiment, it's probably not a good idea to shoehorn too much reality into the fantasy realm of the superhero. Ever
Mhm.
since Stanley introduced anxiety into superheroes, no earlier since Henry Kurtzman first trained a satiric eye on them in Mad magazine, the question, what would superheroes be like in the real world, has bedeviled succeeding generations of comic creators. Frank wrote The Dark Knight in a fortissimo operatic mode, but he recognized that my strengths as an artist were more attuned to the mundane. So with Year One, we sought to craft a credible Batman grounded in a world we recognize. But did we go too far? Once a depiction veers towards realism, each new detail releases a torrent of questions that exposes the absurdity at the heart of the genre. The more
Mhm.
realistic superheroes become, the less believable they are. It's a delicate balance, but this much I know. Superheroes are real when they're drawn in ink. So David um, Mazzucchelli in 2005.
Mhm. Mhm.
So kind of covered a lot of bases there and stuff. But that was an interesting
Yeah.
commentary on just like superheroes, comic books, the purpose of them. Like, is it good to try to make them more realistic, more grounded? Um,
Mhm.
and he says, did we go too far? If you're watching on the screen right now, Gordon's getting beat in with bats. And this
Mhm.
is this is a Batman book, made
Yeah.
for kids, but
Yeah.
not anymore, not this version, obviously. So let's see what your thoughts were.
I mean, I'm a little all over the place because I can see the point of, certain superheroes and certain comics being created for, children, adolescent ages, and to try to bring those in too far into reality, risks distorting or skewing a character that was written a certain way, or, a storyline that's written for a certain age group. And it doesn't work the same, or it fails, or it just doesn't, it's no longer believable. I feel like I understand that. On the flip side of that, I making superheroes real and trying to see what they would do in the real world is one of the fundamental, like, super interesting parts about something like The Boys. That's like the entire point of it. And I think they do it really well because it's like, what if superheroes were, corporatized and privatized and had salaries, and what would we do now? They're, well, spoiler alert, now they're potentially engineered. They're not just born. It's all of these very interesting questions. So yes to some of it, no to some of it. You know what I mean? Um, Maybe it's just that think questions of those nature, or like adult superheroes, or adult thematic questions like that, work when you create superheroes specifically with that in mind. Maybe don't try to bring, something like Batman or Superman into that space because it wasn't created in that space. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of a balance. But like I said, I think, you I wouldn't paint all superheroes with that brushstroke of, they're created for adolescents and we can't, write anything that's not. But yes, I do think you complicate and potentially dilute some effectiveness or some purpose in creating a superhero in a specific space if you try to, take them too far into reality.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the thing that we were on the anime podcast and talking, and I think JP said, "Oh, My Hero Academia would be awesome in live action." I'm like, "No, it wouldn't. You're kidding me? Those people look crazy, you know."
Mhm.
And so you're going to make this real,
Yeah.
and you lose. It does belong in ink. It
Mhm.
belongs in its fantasy world
Yeah.
because that's his comment at the end. When it's in ink, it's real. Like, but if you try to draw it like it's too realistic, you like, why would you wear this thing? That's not
Mhm.
practical. No way you could hold that there.
Mhm.
Whatever, because it's
Mhm.
the same kind of issue I have with Horizon Forbidden West that I said that I've never had before in other games.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
game looks so good that when someone is handing you something, or you're carrying like 40 different weapons or whatever, it's like everything here looks completely realistic, but
It
then I
breaks
have to
down.
deal with all this completely unrealistic elements.
Mhm.
And so, like, look at some of these frames, and there's a lot of groundedness to them, but there's still, with the way that you play with color and the stuff, I think things
Mhm.
are again surrealistic. They feel like a Clockwork Orange or something. You're in some sort of twisted dream.
Yeah.
And that's why I liked Tim Burton, and even Joel Schumacher's Gotham. It wasn't real. It was an amplified,
Yeah, it's a
gothic,
playground.
kind of heightened reality. It wasn't Chicago. It wasn't
Yeah.
that. And so
Yep.
you could separate yourself from reality. And I think that separation from a reality is important if you want to explore some of these more fun things. That's
Mhm.
why like anime is great. You can do all kinds of zany, crazy, over the top things
Mhm.
because it's not real. And are free
Yeah.
to explore a lot of ideas that way.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I
when
mean,
it, yeah.
we talked a lot when we talked to Castlevania, and I know I said this multiple times. There's absolutely no way it could be live action
Hmm.
because of some of the fight scenes that happen would never be believable. I mean, the weapons that like expand and shrink depending on the needs of the battle, like work in an animated setting and would
Hmm.
just be stupid in live action. You would be continuously questioning how that could be possible, and that's not real. So,
Yep.
absolutely. There
And
are certain things made for certain mediums or, for certain audiences, and to bring them too far into reality does call into question logistics that, now are bogging your mind and you're not focused on the content because yeah, like you said, why would you wear that? How could you carry that many weapons? How could you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as like, who their comics are made for and different things and like the intent of superhero comics and stuff, I do feel like there's a lot of that that's lost and like people have lost their audience or like don't understand who they're trying to sell to or anything like that. But I will say that I do think that there is a market and a place for like all different kinds of comic books, but
Yeah.
right, maybe that's not the place to take over something else. It is a really
Mm.
interesting thing with American comics that we take something and so dramatically shape it differently. It's like if we were to
Mhm.
take One Piece, the Japanese manga, and in 30 years' time, it all of a sudden was like uber gory, you
Mm.
know, blood everywhere and like intestines spilling out, it would be like that's so dramatically different than what it was and the audience
Mhm.
it was targeting then. It's no longer the thing. It's so different. And now with, if you take Batman, it's changed and been
Mhm.
reiterated upon and many different stories have been told by many different people and many
Mhm.
different tones for many different age groups. And like I'm just not sure if that's a great thing or if that's like a weird thing, if that's a disturbing thing. Like what would the creators feel about it? Would they just be happy that like
Mhm.
my thing has survived so long, even though it's
Mhm.
a shadow of what it was? Or
Yeah.
would they be happy that pieces are have seen or, like
Whether they'd
varies
be
on depends on the
horrified
person,
or yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you said, what if we took One Piece and then suddenly, however many years from now, it was just like full of gore. It made me, it weirdly made me think of, you know, Anglophile again and literature major popping up here. It made me think of Pride and Prejudice and how that
Yeah.
turned into
Exactly.
Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
Zombies, yep. Mhm.
and and it's interesting. I never, revolted at the notion, but that's also I think because this was kind of a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, farcical, you know,
Yes.
humorous adaptation, and it was a one-off. It's not like
Yeah.
Pride and Prejudice. I mean, Pride and Prejudice has been rewritten a lot in a lot of different formats, or the formula of the story has,
Yeah.
but it's never really strayed that far. And so somebody taking that and doing that was actually quite, humorous. But if that sort of thing kept happening, if somebody kept trying to add, you know, rewrite Pride and Prejudice and do, is it more real? Is it more gore? Is it, I don't know that I would feel the same way as I did with this one-off sort of cheeky adaptation.
Mhm,
So,
mhm. So I think this is a great transition, and we can cut back to some of the things if you feel like it. But this is a great transition to
sure.
Octopussy
All right, lay
because
it on me.
look, we're just talking now about Pride and Prejudice to Pride and Prejudice and zombies. Now, obviously, that's like you say, a cheeky spin-off, different thing. It's not the
Mhm.
sequel to Pride and Prejudice,
Right.
but something that definitely has sequels, many of them, the
Mhm.
James Bond franchise, that is
Certainly
dramatically
cheeky.
different in the Roger Moore era than what original creation would be.
Super true.
Um, is it's got to be would have to be weird for Ian Fleming, for a creator or
Yes.
for anyone that was around reading the novels as they came out to then see these movies explode on screen and then change so dramatically.
Mhm.
Um, to really so it's an interesting discussion, just like what makes a Bond film. Why are these movies allowed to so dramatically shift and we still love them over time? Because
Mhm.
we have changed standards. And I can
Mhm.
you imagine a franchise now that would go from a movie that was like, you know, pretty serious in a lot of ways, like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, to
Mhm.
before you know it, you're in, I don't know, The Spy Who Loved Me and the Octopussy and then the View to a Kill and like you just Man with a Golden Gun. We got three nipples. It's just like I don't know. It's just so radically changed, and
Yeah. I
are
mean,
we?
I'm
So we're talking Octopussy, but are we good with it? Like, how do you feel these movies are tone wise? Like, does it bother
I'm
you?
not I'm not gonna lie, Roger Moore's always been the hardest for me. The cheek is, I mean, and it's just exemplified. It's just everywhere in Octopussy. I mean, even the name. I mean, come on. It knows what it's doing. But there's so much innuendo and so much, punning and so much just, one-liners thrown around that don't need to be. Octopussy is so excessive of all of that. It's not even a parody. It's not even, a nod to itself anymore. It's just so over the top for me.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean there aren't things I liked or there weren't moments, but there were so many eye rolls from me because it felt like we at times in this movie almost stopped the action so that Roger Moore could deliver a one-liner.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. I didn't
And
feel
there
that.
were
I didn't feel that.
I already had some pacing issues with the movie. The movie felt slow. It felt its 2 hours and 10 minutes runtime. Um, Again, not to say there weren't things I liked or there weren't scenes that I felt moved quickly or were paced well, but overall, I did feel this was choppy. I did feel a slowing down in certain action sequences, like the chase through the jungle, and we had, Roger Moore pausing and being chased by about 40 people to tell a snake slithering over his legs to hiss off. Come on now. Like, so, yeah. So this one is a lot of, like, very heightened, this is what makes Bond Bond, but we're gonna take it to, like, the next level.
Okay. Okay.
And so Octopussy is a hard one for me.
So, when was the last time you watched this movie before
Woof, a
this?
long time ago.
Okay.
Long time ago.
Did you remember much from it or what your impression of it was? Did you go into it with like,
Sure.
this is how I remember this film and
I mean, I remembered the gist of the film, um, but I definitely didn't remember details. Like, I remember, um, like, our kind of overall Russian plot and that they were, a piece of our antagonists. But I hadn't quite remembered how that played out in terms of using Octopussy as a jewel smuggler to finance, um, this whole plan to take over Europe with disarmament talks. Like the specifics of that hadn't quite registered,
Right.
and how the two were supposed to be intertwined that way. Um, and it's to me super unbelievable. So it's
Yeah.
probably why my brain skipped over it
Mhm.
in just not remembering that those two were interconnected that way because it's pretty weak.
That's what I thought because I was watching it, was trying to for quiet for the kids. I turned on subtitles, and then I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
I have to be able to enjoy this. I went rewound it some, and I put on headphones to watch it, and yeah, like that was one of the weakest things for me is just like the believability of this setup of characters. And there's always that sort of thing like I enjoy when it can be done well, where
Mhm.
like you're being housed by the enemy or something, they kind
Yep.
of like treat you well, but you're gonna get it. But that's a very specific situation where that makes any sense
Yep.
other than like we're just gonna have someone kill you right now, or I don't know. So the story to me was lacking. I definitely hadn't seen this movie in its entirety in ages.
Sure.
Only pieces of it really like on TV a long time ago. And so it's been one that was always bored me. And I wanted to come back to it because the anniversary, I thought I've heard some people kind of like more people have been opining over the yesteryear of Bond
Yeah.
recently in the Bond community just because like the way the last one ended and the sort of like serious nature of the
Yeah.
Craig era and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
I get
so
that.
that well,
And yeah,
I'm
what kind of tone are we going to take for the next Bond? And
yeah.
do we yearn for some of the playfulness back? Which I mean,
Hmm.
Roger Moore era is nothing if not playful.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I mean that's a completely another question is like what can a audience today handle in terms of a movie and whether it's tongue-in-cheek things or a spy movie that is like where's the fun become too much fun
Hmm.
because we have to still believe there's stakes and still be invested in the drama of it and not be
Hmm.
taken out of that too much. So
Hmm.
I don't know. um but I have to say I enjoyed it more than I ever did.
Sure.
So like I did like a lot more of it than I thought I was going to.
Hmm.
um Other than the, like, story that was like, "I don't know about this," I liked a lot of the things. I thought that it was pretty well acted in a number of parts. And it helped me knowing some of the ridiculous things were coming to be
Yeah.
okay with it. Like Bond in a crocodile suit, or like,
The
or
things Roger Moore had to wear in this
Mhm.
crocodile suits and
Gorilla.
gorillas, clown. Oh my
Mhm.
god. Poor guy just put through the freaking ringer in terms of costuming.
Yep. It's on
Ay,
screen now, this dorky
yeah.
knife throwing get up,
Outfit, yeah. Woof.
Mhm.
Yep. I mean,
Um,
just rough here. I mean, it was sort of fun. It was a reminder, um, a little bit that, being a spy sometimes is about like disguising yourself. Not usually, I mean, I don't know anything about the actual business of being a spy, but I'm sure not in like these dorky of costumes. But there was, I feel like, some element of that missing through like a Craig era or partially even a Brosnan one as well. They never disguised themselves. It's just here
right.
I am. I'm James
Yeah,
Bond.
yeah. Mustache maybe. I feel like Pierce Brosnan put on a mustache once. I don't know.
Me, I don't recall that.
Yeah, usually it's just a no. Usually it's just the costume. Usually it's just
Right.
like a military garb or whatever the thing is to
Right.
fit in with the
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Mm.
So some of this was, kind of fun just to be, you know, thinking about it that way.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, Not one of the greatest opening sequences, like or title sequences, song and the anime, just like, it's just kinda forgettable, I think.
The song is fine,
Mhm.
it's not bad, but there's no logic to this like ice skater dancer something that's happening
Mhm.
during this, and then just women sort of being naked
Mhm. I'm
and
not
looking
complaining
at
about that
guns.
part, but it doesn't necessarily I get the thematically fit with
Right,
what's going
it
on.
doesn't yeah, it doesn't lend itself
Yeah.
to anything that's happening in the movie.
She used
I
for
mean, other
circus stuff,
than
right?
they didn't even really do that though.
Right, they need
There wasn't like knife throwing or juggling or, I don't know,
Mhm.
anything. Like, we didn't even get like sparkly sequin outfits. They were just sort of like some naked women.
Mhm.
Which I mean, if we were alluding to Octopussy's Island of Women, kind of, but also too generic.
Sure.
Could have done more thematically, I think, to lend itself to this particular movie. This could have been plugged in anywhere. It's just generic, I think is
I
the word.
think I mean, obviously, we're dealing with a different time period, special effects and all this stuff or whatever, but,
Mhm.
I think I'd envision something that was, like, basically naked women doing all the different things in the circus and having some
Yeah.
sorta element of the octopus, like,
Yeah.
tearing down
There
and
was
being a
that.
transition or something, Like, he would, like, grab the screen, break it, or and then move to the next thing, something like that.
Right. Or we could have done something fun with like smuggling a jewel from woman to woman because there
Mm,
was like a whole smuggling thing. There could have been some interesting things to allude to any, I mean, of the ridiculous plot, but the plot of the movie.
yeah.
So this would feel less like you could have plugged it into any Bond film and
Yep.
it just sort of works because there's elements,
Yep.
but it's not special.
Girls and guns and yeah. Right. Yep. Um, I like that you commented in your notes here, you wrote Seiko watch.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That was
It's a
very
very weird
featured, very
one.
prominent. Yep.
Mhm. It
Yeah.
was a, kind of weird, like, aside moment in the Roger Moore era where they used some different Seiko watches as things are becoming digital. So
Mhm. Yep.
mhm.
Yep. That was clearly something they were having fun exploring, like pushing the technology there. And I've
Mhm.
always loved the way watches are always some sort of feature of spy gadgetry.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
that was fun.
Um So we talked earlier, we were talking about drinks, about her making her like the cocktail or whatever and stuff. The thing I noticed with that is that she went over to her bar cart and picked up she didn't mix anything. She picked
Nope.
up the thing, she shook it like this, and then it was the most gentle shake ever. So I'm willing to give it okay, maybe Bond interrupted her. She'd already put all the ingredients in the
Mhm.
shaker. But then you
I know
gotta
you're
shake
coming.
it.
Yeah.
You gotta shake it. You don't you don't get to
Girl.
just like, I don't know.
Yeah. Little bitty shakes. Nope.
Clearly the script said like, "Move to bar cart, pour drink," or something, like,
Yeah.
just mhm,
She I think her name's like Maud something. I can't remember her last name, who played Octopussy. She had a lot of moments where she felt like she was just doing what the script told her to do.
mm,
It wasn't necessarily that she was making the script or the directions feel natural. Like that, the whole
right.
scene where she suddenly, like right after this, where she suddenly becomes angry with Bond and runs away. And the next shot is Roger Moore entering her bedroom and she's stopped by her bed. It clearly felt like the script said stop and pause for Bond by the bed. There was no logical reason why she
That's what
was
she was really doing.
lingering there.
She knew what was going on, and like, yeah. Hmm.
There was no Maude Adams, thank you. Thank you, Alan. There was no logical flow to that scene other than, "This is what the script said, so this is what I will do now."
Hmm. Hmm.
Ah, yay.
So I do have to say again, overall, I did enjoy watching the movie. I got something out of it. I liked the chase that was like on the kind of golf cart kind of thing. I liked that. So like
Oh, yeah,
chase on the golf
yeah, yeah, yeah,
cart, and then
yeah. Mhm,
he like threw all the money in the. So that's the part of the movie I like the most. I think is like in the casino there, he's meeting the other woman, and
mhm,
he brings his money out and he's chased and he throws it up. He's got his partner there and they get away through the like false door thing. I like
mhm.
that whole sequence. I thought that was good. Um it's yeah, like once we get to like the island full of gymnast women that can fight
Yeah,
too, and like you say, the kind of stilted Octopussy. I do have to say it was nice. It's nice in the Roger Moore era. It can be hit and miss with it, and it doesn't
mhm.
bother me too much because of the tone in the movies. But ultimately, it's nice to have someone that's closer to Roger Moore's age as sort of the
Yes,
Bond girl, the Bond
yes.
woman. So
I
that's
agree.
good.
So I have several comments here. Um, so start I guess with that one. Yes. One, nice to see nice to see a Bond girl that seems close in age to especially an older Bond, which I feel like you can see Moore's age here. It's not necessarily a critique. Like I had in one of my notes that it almost seems even more British that
Mm.
Roger Moore is older and he's surrounded by a bunch of older men at MI6. It just I don't know, when you
Yeah,
think of Britain, you tend to think of older people.
it's
So
Doctor Who and like
it is.
Pertwee. It's like the third Doctor and all the generals and stuff. Like you know,
They're just
good
yeah,
evening,
so
Dad, and like really proper English and just like.
right. And they all just in your mind sort of skew older. So somehow
Mhm.
it just felt more authentic in a way, even though, like I said, you could just see Moore's age, I think, in some of this. In some of the stunts, I felt like they were kind of tailoring it to his age, which not the worst thing, but I felt like I could see it more.
Sure.
Um, as far as Octopussy goes, I really felt like overall she was just a reused and kind of refaceted Pussy Galore. There were several elements of this movie that reminded me of Goldfinger in too close of a way, and I didn't love it. Like this scene in particular, we have a gambling scene where we start out with Bond watching an older gentleman lose to our villain at a game of what's supposed to be chance or luck that they're betting on, and this hapless older gentleman is just coming back for more. Your luck's got to run out sometime. I think it was even almost the exact same line
Yeah.
as
Yep.
from Goldfinger. So and then Bond sits down and recognizes cheating is happening and is like, "Oh, I'm going to rectify this situation." So I didn't love that aspect. I didn't love the strong, silent foreign henchman who just crushes an object in his hand. With
The
Oddjob, it's the
dice.
golf ball.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oddjob does the golf ball, and
Eh,
then here we have
mhm.
Gobinda does the dice. Like I said, now Octopussy with her Island of Women feels like Pussy Galore with her like whole flying
Sure.
squadron of women who can do their like trained thing.
Mhm.
So I don't know, there were some reused elements that I just didn't appreciate. Again, doesn't mean I didn't like things about this movie, but things that I noticed there that felt a little reused and not
Okay.
in a subtle way.
Well, I was gonna say, like I'm looking here, and it was like 29 years between Goldfinger and
Mhm.
Octopussy. So I think it's fair to like that you could have callbacks and sort of things that remind,
Totally.
just watching the Mission Impossible trailer for the new movie, different franchise, but just watching the trailer, I'm like, there are a lot of things in here that are clearly callbacks to
Callback.
the first movie, you know, and
Yeah,
so like I'm
and
okay with that generally.
I think there were too many too on the nose, too many, like, direct similarities. Like, Pussy Galore, Octopussy, you both have this, like, squadron of women. Like I said, like, you have a strong silent henchman who crushes, something. You have
Yep.
a gambling scene where I like I said, I think they say the same exact line about your luck's gotta run out sometime. It just felt like you could have been a little more inventive about making it subtle.
Hmm.
Because I like a callback, but this was almost like copying.
Sure.
I also am biased. I'm skewed. Sean Connery is my Bond. It's the reason I'm drinking the scotchy scotch as well
So
tonight.
when
He's my Bond. He's my man.
so when you read so when we read uh Live and Let Die,
Mhm.
you're gonna be picturing Connery.
Probably. I
Okay.
mean, I could have the same reaction you do though.
Hmm.
There are I think there are elements to almost every Bond performer, and I can't speak to Lazenby either because I just don't remember well enough right now. There are elements to every person who's played Bond that I think they do and represent a facet of his character really well.
Okay.
Like I agreed with what you were saying early on. Um,
Hmm.
like Sean Connery's just got like I think the great swagger. He's just got such natural delivery of his lines when he's being like tongue in cheek or he's being, you know, I don't know, he's delivering those one-liners. They just don't sound as out of place as sometimes Roger Moore's do, where they're almost like shining a spotlight, like, look at the joke we made.
Yep.
Um, but in terms of, like you said, his interactions at MI6 and his sort of more proper Queen's English way of speaking, all of that felt very natural to me in this movie. All of those
Hmm.
interactions or his trading barbs with Kamal Khan, that chemistry seemed very on to me.
Hmm.
And I felt like that was one of the more natural parts of the film, like that antagonistic relationship, but it almost seemed an extension of um, him talking to some of the older gentlemen at MI6. So yes, there's definitely elements of each Bond that I respond to, but Sean Connery for me has more of the total package than anybody else, in
Hmm.
my opinion.
So how do we think, this is I think a maybe an important question.
Sure.
How do we think which Bond do you feel has the best chemistry with Q?
Mm,
So negating new Q,
Q is my
uh,
favorite. He is actually one of my favorite parts of this film too. His one-liners are much better, I think, than Moore's. His whole
yeah,
like bond on an island of women. We won't see him till tomorrow. Like,
yeah, yeah,
or like,
yep,
ladies, ladies, not now, later. When they're all
yeah, maybe
surrounding him
later.
as he
Yeah,
comes out.
that's right. Yeah.
It's so good. You could just tell he's having a ball.
Mhm.
Oh, he was absolutely one of my favorite parts of this film. Um,
Yep.
he to me, to get on a little bit of a side tangent, um, is oh my gosh, I'm not thinking of his name right now. His real name. Just hold on
Desmond Lewis,
Desmond Llewellyn, I think is his
Lewin. Oh, Lewin.
Lewin.
Yeah, Lewin.
Um no, so yes, he to me is like part of what makes Bond Bond, the same way that Michael Gough makes Alfred in the Batman
Mm,
movies. They're like
sure.
favorite
Yeah, that's a
long running
good point.
elements of those. You know what I mean? They're so analogous to each other and they're just my favorites.
That's a good point because you know, it's nice in those Batman movies to have that carryover, to have that constant. It is nice in the Bond movies to have that as well.
Mhm.
Um, Now, Q had like such a track record because over
Yes.
so many years, so he
Yes.
doesn't have the competition that we have with Alfred. And to say that, yes, I agree. The original Alfred in the first four Batman movies,
Mhm.
Michael will go right as was um,
Yeah, I think it's Go
he,
or I don't know if it might be
Gao,
Goff.
yeah,
Gal.
Goff, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He is
Goff.
also my favorite,
Yes.
and
Best.
that's a there's a lot of great people that have followed him. You
Mhm.
know, with Michael Caine and Scar, whatever his name is,
Oh, Jeremy
um,
Irons. Yeah.
Jeremy Irons, and now Gollum. I mean,
Circus,
that's
yeah.
just
Circus.
character. That's a pretty good, impressive list,
Yeah.
you know. But there's one true Alfred. I agree,
Yep.
and there's one true Q. And
Yep.
you know, I mean, while we're on it, I should add. Okay, so firstly, back to the question: who interacts best and has the best chemistry? Which Bond with Q? And then what do we think of the new
Ooh.
Q? I know we're like deviating heavily from from Octopussy here, but
Sure, 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 sure. Um, oh god, that's such a good question. I mean, so to address the second one first because I think it's easier. The new Q is likable and it's nice that they went so far in the opposite direction, of having like such a young Q now. It's
mhm,
it's like having, you know, a much different doctor for Doctor Who. It's
right,
nice that you're not trying to replicate what you did. It's
right,
refreshing and it's just
yeah.
like
You can't one
let
up.
yeah, let that be.
Mhm,
Let that be and just take it a different direction and just don't try to do it again. Try to replicate the magic that you had. Try to
yep,
create new magic. Um, so he is a serviceable, likable Q. It's hard to transition from something that you love so dearly, um, as it always is, but he's fine. I don't think I'm ever going to love Ben Wishaw like I loved um, Desmond. Okay, how do you say it? Llewellyn.
Llewell,
Yeah, okay.
Llewellyn, yeah.
I'm not gonna love him that way. I don't think, but he is solid. He is likable.
Okay,
Um, so to the more difficult question, oof, it's hard.
we're gonna have a better view understanding of this as we go through more of these films
More,
to
yeah.
get it fresh, more fresh in our minds. But
It's hard because you know, as sad as I am to say it, I would have I feel like loved his chemistry with Pierce Brosnan a lot, except for the fact that he is clearly so much older and just having a little bit of a harder time, you know, getting the range of everything that he used
still
to.
good though.
Still
Still
so good.
good.
So good.
Mhm.
Absolutely. But like I said, just having a little bit of a harder time there. This movie is like skewing me, like pushing Roger Moore higher up the list just because I felt like this movie in particular, they were having so much fun. There's just nobody, I mean, both like here and with Michael Goff in Batman, just nobody does like a just ugh, like you childish little boy that I take care of. They just don't do that sort of scorn. Oh god, they just do it so well. Nobody else does it like they do. So here was like a lot of ample
Nobody does it better.
opportunity.
That's what you say.
Nobody does it better. Um, there was just so much ample opportunity for that to be on display and for him to just give all those withering looks and sighs and just like, oh god. Um, Whereas, he doesn't do that as much with Connery, even though, like, that's, an OG pairing that I love.
Mhm.
I'm having a hard time with that question. I don't know that I can give you an answer until we've
I
rewatched some more and I can formulate a
yeah.
better opinion.
Tentatively, I think it's Roger Moore, with Pierce Brosnan a close second, because there is a, like, a really nice, like, I don't know why I like so much the way Pierce Brosnan interacts with Q. Um,
Yeah.
just those are the fun moments, and I think it's done really well. But Roger Moore's type of Bond fits so
Mhm.
well with the
Yeah.
kind of shtick they want to do with Q,
Yep.
and so that it leads to a lot of moments that are fun. Like, I not too long ago watched For Your Eyes Only again, which is one of my favorite Roger Moore movies, and up there on the Bond scale for me, honestly. And there was a good moment where Q is on location again, and he's like he's in like a hat, and he's like sweeping on the side of the road or something, and then he takes it off and pulls an antenna out of the thing. He's like on site, and it's just fun that he's there. Like, that wouldn't
Mhm.
work in the Brosnan or anyone else's thing. It's
Yep.
just fun that he's, like, a part of it and all that.
Yep.
So
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
Uh, as far as Ben Whishaw for me, I really liked him in Skyfall. I thought this is gonna be a
Mhm.
fun pairing, and I liked the switch up that I mean, like, it's just how cold but witty he is. He's not
Mhm.
goofy and stuff, and then they progressively made him more, I don't know, less stern, more silly as the films went, I feel like. I took him less seriously. He seemed
Mhm.
like less of a meaningful character to me,
Mm,
and I just
yeah, he was more goofy, like
yeah,
fumbly, like British, like quintessential,
dork.
like, oh yeah, and he didn't
Yeah,
need to be.
yeah. In Skyfall, he was cool. He knew what he was doing. He knew Bond's
Right.
reputation. I'm gonna give you this thing. He didn't talk too much. I
Right.
liked it. I liked him off the rip, and then kind of fell away more. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think they tried to like inject some sort of like personality traits that just didn't need to be there. Not that he couldn't have a
yep,
personality, but he just didn't need to be like goofy like this to be a
yep,
human.
yep.
Um, so I was gonna say something and I totally forgot what I was gonna say, and then it came back to me. I think part of the reason why I love Q and Brosnan in Brosnan's Bond era is
Mhm,
because part of his like appeal for me and part of his joy is not only the withering looks and the, oh god, um, but also like the joy he has when they're playing with new gadgets.
mm,
And they can do so much in Brosnan's era. Like, there's such a leap
sure.
forward in,
Yeah,
like, all of the gadgetry and, like, tricks and things that they do. You can genuinely feel the fun that they're having being like, "Look, I made a car that drives from a cell phone pad," or, just
mhm,
stuff like that. So, I think that's part of the elevation of their relationship is the possibilities of technology have gotten so much bigger, and they're just like kids playing. And he's clearly a
mhm,
kid having fun, like, "This came out of my brain and I built it. Like,
mhm.
let me show you how it works." So,
The moment I always remember with Q, the Q scene is, he's, Bond's, like, looking around, he just sort of picks up a big sandwich, and he's just like, "That's my lunch!" Like, thinking
yes,
thinking it's a trick or a gadget or something, and just
"No,
it's
that's my
stupid and silly, but
lunch."
I like it.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, I do have to say, I see you commented on stunts a little bit for Octopussy. I think the
Yeah.
Roger Moore era stunts are great. Like, obviously, the stunts aren't him. You know, like, we're not in the Tom Cruise era. We didn't. Actors never did what Tom Cruise does. Actors
Yes.
didn't do their own stunts. It's not a thing. Um,
Oh my gosh, it's
it
so
can't.
clear when they get on that plane in the end and there's a stunt double just in your face. Nobody tried to hide
I
that.
mean, the picture quality didn't used to be that
Ooh.
good, you just like you did what you could.
Yeah.
And but the stunts themselves during the Roger Moore eras, I think is really good. I
Mhm.
think that there is some them driving stuff that's great. They did so much stuff just for the time that did it practically, and skiing sequences, all kinds of
Yeah.
things that I think are just really well done. And I appreciate those a lot more now as an adult, knowing they're real and watching
Mhm.
that, even though I know it's not Roger Moore doing it. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's great. Um, do you have anything else to say about Octopussy? Like my overall thoughts is I did enjoy the movie a lot more than I ever have before. I liked
Mhm.
my experience watching it. I was happy to watch it start to finish, like I haven't in a long time.
Mhm.
I liked it more because I knew what was coming at me. I was ready for the camp and the silliness and the tone of movie it was. And
Mhm.
but my gripes would be like, there wasn't a lot of fashion that stood out to me. His Seiko watch is not a watch that was a preferential to me. It's not like real great looking. The plot seemed pretty, I don't know, this little kind of
Thin.
a little loose there. Not sure if that makes sense. And
It's sad because the plot almost could have been 2 plots that could have been
mhm,
stronger if you developed either one of them. Instead, they just got tied together in this sort of weird, like, mishmash with very thin threads
mhm,
pulling it together, and it's disappointing because maybe this could have been a lot stronger if we just picked one of these and ran with it.
yeah, like just make Octopussy the woman that he meets initially. You know,
Yeah,
that's at the when they're bidding for
the
the
auction
Fabergé egg
for
and
the
stuff.
bees, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, all of this
and
could have
just
been simplified a lot,
mhm.
and it would have been
Don't need the
stronger.
island of women then. You know,
Mhm.
that was
And
underused utilized anyways, other than like using them for combat at the end
right.
unnecessarily.
Well, and Octopussy's backstory could have been really interesting. That her dad was connected to Bond and he sort of expected, because he had brought him in, that she was out for revenge. And she's like, no, actually, I kind of appreciated what you did. That could have been really interesting to
Mhm.
explore that connection and tell more about Bond's backstory, her backstory. Missed opportunity. I was really
Sure.
intrigued, and then they just shut that down because didn't have time for that.
Yep. Yep. Um, okay. Well,
Yeah. It was more fun in certain parts than I had remembered. There were definitely enjoyable sequences. Um, it just there it was hard, like you said, it was hard to ignore the plot kind of hanging on by a thread.
right.
And it was really hard for me to feel the pacing slowed down so we could deliver some one-liners instead of those being more naturally worked in. I just felt, you know, right off the bat, we were getting these like puns about Toro sounds like a load of bull, or the one I already said about the snake. Like
Mhm.
it just could have been worked in a little more, and that's one of
Mhm.
the strengths of Sean Connery's era that I wish was translated here as well.
Sure. Okay. Well, we're working out, I think, a pretty good
Hmm.
schedule for, next couple months and all that sort of thing. So we can give you all a sneak peek at what you can look forward to. A lot of weeks, guys. I know it's a surprise to you. We're like, what should we talk about? And then we just come up with it. We kind of have like a structure now for a little bit. I think
Uh,
that's between this and some anime and stuff like that. So
Yeah, we're adulting our podcast. My gosh, we're growing up.
next week, we should be back with the anime show to talk about the last two episodes in this particular arc of Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yeah.
So that will be probably crazy, and we'll see what happens there.
Mhm.
Then we're gonna have a movie that, if I'm remembering this right, I'm not looking up. We're talking The Menu, right?
Yes.
The
Mhm.
Menu. So we're going to a new movie, a newer movie. I've heard some pretty cool things. It's a great cast. So now is your chance. Go watch The Menu so you can tune in to our show in a couple weeks for that. Then we'll be back with another anime episode, and we'll be talking on that one. I might do end up doing like 2 episodes in that week with Phil and stuff. So we're trying to do that week is the Heaven and Hell week. So we're gonna be talking about Hell's
Okay.
Paradise on
Right.
the Monday, and then later in the week, Heavenly Delusion. Kind of
Mm.
comparing the anime to the manga because I've read the manga and Phil has watched the anime. So might be kind of a shorter but double feature sort of week.
Week, yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
then after that, we're back to celebrating Bond anniversaries. So,
Mhm.
as I mentioned earlier, we obviously just talked Octopussy. That was 1983, 40-year anniversary. In 73, that was Live and Let Die. So
Mhm.
Roger Moore's first appearance, well, 10
Yes.
years before. So 50th anniversary of that. And the fun thing is, we're going to be reading the book and talking about the movie and the differences. So
Mhm.
that's going to be pretty exciting, I think.
Yes.
Um, I've got to get Moonraker finished. My copy of Live and Let Die is on order. It's coming soon, hopefully. So,
Same. So,
and then we'll probably jump back into some anime before we. I don't know what, it starts to get a little hate, but that's a lot of ways. That's a number of weeks for you guys all to
exactly.
be
Exactly.
planned.
We're
We
taking
do have
baby
another.
adulting steps.
What's that?
We're taking baby adulting steps. We can't plan out,
Yeah.
like, the rest of the year or anything.
Yep.
We've got
Mhm,
August
mhm,
into September solidly covered.
mhm. Oh, and then, I mean, for sure late in the year, we got From Russia with Love. So that came out
Yeah.
in 1963.
Mhm.
So, um,
And that is
another
one I
10 years
actually have
prior.
watched more recently.
Oh, you have? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't remember
So,
why, but it might have just been on TV or something, but I know I've watched that more recently.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to talk about that and the Connery era in general. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Those are all the sorts of things that are coming up on this channel. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, all those sorts of things. We're on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter or X, Facebook, podcast directories and services. So our video version of the podcast is available on Spotify, otherwise Apple Podcasts. You can review us there. Be much appreciated. Killing the Flower, they wrote our theme song. They're on YouTube and music streaming services as well. You should check them out. And then Track Mouse 34. I thought Mike
Think
was saying it was track underscore
so.
mouse, but I am pretty sure on YouTube it's track mouse 34.
I think
And
so too.
you should go and subscribe to him. He's got some fun racing videos that like dash cam going in at the track and stuff like that. So go ahead and check him out. Let's see, I could probably verify quickly. Track mouse, yeah. Yep, at track
Mhm.
mouse 34. Capital
Yep.
T, capital M. So, and then MJ Honeybee, she streams on Twitch. She was on earlier today. She had a shorter stream today, but otherwise, make sure you follow her for some fun Dead by Daylight content. And Andrea, did you get Jay's comic book?
I did. I just got it.
Okay,
I was
nice.
really
All right,
excited. I just got it in the mail.
nice. So I haven't started that yet. And it's a really a comic for kids, but want to read it and see what I think about it, and we'll have to
Same.
we'll have to talk about that on there on here, and we can throw out the invite if Jay wants to take our critiques in person, if he wants to come back on or not. So yeah, but anyways, that's been our show. I've got one little bit of tequila I just poured to celebrate Tequila Day as well. So cheers to everybody out there, and Andrea, thanks again for joining me.
Of course. Cheers.